All right, this is going to be my last one actually for tonight, but I'm just going to entitle this, I guess, part 2 of the procedures and technologies used or that were used against myself and my family. When I covered this in the first part, I just mentioned some of the stuff that has happened to me over the past 7 years, whether it be before or after the grand theft of our home and everything that we ever owned. And of course, I'd mentioned, it's just been everything. It's all been illegal, unconstitutional. It's been, a lot of it's unhumanitarian. I've been shot at, I've been chased through the woods, down a dark country road at like 2:30 in the morning. When there's no lights, not a single light, not even moonlight. It can get pretty challenging on your will, people. But I've forgotten to mention, I've been, for parking my vehicle and just because I knew that, they were waiting for me to stop. And I had done nothing, not a single thing. Completely for the sake that they just wanted to put the surveillance on me. And I know what they were doing. I know exactly where they were, and I knew exactly what they were up to. They had eventually, they had helicopters with the spotlights shining on me, and by the time they had eventually caught up with me, all of this was just for parking my car or my vehicle and getting out. And because I had managed to slip out of their sight, and again, I'd done nothing now. They're just, apparently they seemed really ticked because I had slipped out of their surveillance eyes. Although if you're following a cult, you say eye, for, a little bit while they were ticked. So, they ended up chasing me with a helicopter and all that crap and the spotlight and everything. And what ended up happening as a result of that one was they ended up, because I was trying to evade that spotlight, and there's a certain technology they use for that, which I won't get into now, but I know what it is. And I investigated everything. I looked into everything, even down to the, I'll just keep it general, to the possible companies who even sell that technology to them. Anyway, they had chased me down a 12-foot deep, they had chased me into a ravine that was 12 feet deep because I fell quite a ways, but it was 5 feet full of water. So I ended up, scrunching my knees, and I ended up basically floating in there, for quite a while that night. I almost caught pneumonia, and, you could, it's a cold night where you can see your breath, and, try having on sweatpants and a sweatshirt and dipping yourself into that cold water. You will literally raise your octave quite a few steps. And there was something that, I won't get into that. But anyway, so that's, because they were ticked, because I had managed to, and I knew I did because they were running around like hell trying to see where I was. And I just wanted to be left alone. I wanted to be, I just wanted my privacy, but, of course, they can't have that. So anyway, that's what happened with that. I forgot to mention that in the first part. Anyway, so in this one, I'm just going to touch on a couple of things here. They had, like when I would be parked somewhere in my vehicle, conducting their Uh, oh, and by the way, people, when I mentioned the electric company episode that we went through with them, which is, again, it's like 5 stories on its own. That was horrible, and I will cover all of that. You know, the thing that ticked me off the most, you know, that you can be so inhumane, because they, like I said, we caught them juicing our meter. They wouldn't admit to it, but people, when you disconnect the main breaker from the house, not turn it off, disconnect it. Your little analog wheel is still spinning. They're juicing it. Especially when your bill is 300% higher than it usually is, and I couldn't understand why, because I had the previous bill was about 150%, and this is when all this is going on, so you know why they did it. But I went around purposely and unplugged all the alarm clocks, except for like one, I mean, all that stuff. And it ends up going up like 300%? Yeah, I don't think so. And, you know, to give it a little more of a boost, our central heating and air or whatever was broken at the time, so they can't blame it on that. And word of caution, it seems to be in the winter, because they use the excuse, because, what's up, Al? Anyhow, the thing that ticked me off most was that, and that's the reason why, one of the reasons why we had gotten into it with the electric company, because I had caught them now, which I have no doubt who put them up to that, as we were already having to deal with, you know, certain clandestine groups of beings at this point. The thing that ticked me off the most was they purposely waited until the very middle of the week between Christmas and New Year's, all right, to interrupt your holidays, right? Because I told them, look, you know, somebody needs to come in and look at this thing, because it's 300%, and I went around and unplugged everything pretty much that we had, with the exception of a few, and it goes up 300%, and our they can't say that the unit kicked on to central air because it was broken. So that's how we caught them. But nevertheless, they were put up to the task that they would cut our electric off directly in the middle of the week. It was that Wednesday. I'll never forget it. Well, it was Wednesday or Thursday. It was right in the very week between Christmas and New Year's, so that they would ruin your holidays. They said, well, you know, in other words, they're saying, well, you know, we'll let you enjoy your Christmas, but you're not going to get all your New Year's too. I mean, you know, it's just, that's why I was ticked, because it was just complete arrogance. But this is the thing that bothered me most about that whole situation there, and I'll get back on track what I was talking about here, was, people, if you've ever seen your, you know, 9 or 10-year-old child wake up in the morning in a house that is in its mid-30s, it just completely breaks your heart. Like I said, the things that they have done to me and my family, only because of what I knew at the time, is just completely unacceptable. And they are crimes, every one of them. And they're literally, people, combine the big ones with the small ones. I'm talking about possibly hundreds of thousands to, it could, maybe, yes, it could go into over 1 million. I'm not sure, because it's every day, especially when you count what they've done to me where I'm at now. but it literally will break your heart to see a small child have to wake up in a house in its mid-30s during the heart of winter, and to know that, they're not humans, but to know that a human being can do that to another human being. If you got despair, I mean, that's not even counting what I'm aware of at the moment and how that could have easily been settled. I mean, it just still steams me to no end to this day, but I'll get back on track here and I'll cover that in detail later. But just so you know what warm-hearted beings these are. All right, so dealing with, I'm just going to cover real quick the horn system and the something that they would do to me in the courts when I would have cases like that electric case or the house case or whatever it was. I had I think 3 or 4 of them at that time, because everything under the sun they were doing unconstitutionally to us. Anyhow, all right, so whenever I'd go somewhere and I'd leave my vehicle, actually, this was after the big grand theft that they pulled. So I'd be in the front of whatever store, and they would be literally swarming. I mean, just like they do to me here, just trying to, forgive my language please, but just trying to dick with you in any way possible, whatever they can find. So in this particular time, they were swarming all cars of the gangs that they would hire, as many as they could around where I was parked. Enough to get noticed. They'd pull up beside you when somebody would leave, or then they'd make it a point to completely surround your car and sit there and stare at you and stuff like that. So the horn system was when you would get out of your vehicle. They would give it a certain number of honks. When you got back in your vehicle, they would give it a certain number of honks. And those honks would come from all over. Everybody was around you, just beyond around you, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers back around you, it didn't matter. And so I decided, what the hell, so it was 1 or 2 times just to make sure I could verify the story so I could write it down later. I dicked with them for a little while, and I'd open my door, close my door, open it. And there was all kinds of people honking me. I didn't know what they was doing, or what to do, or how many honks to give, or whatever. So finally they just stopped. But that was the horn system they had set up for communication. And then if you actually change locations or actually end up leaving that particular location, they would give it an extended number of honks. And they would flash their lights, every single one of them. Now, can you imagine what that looked like? Everybody who was parked around you, and I'm talking like in the immediate parking spaces around you, and then 2 and 3 deep around you, and then 4 and 5 deep. When everybody flashed their lights on and off, their brights on and off, and honked their horn an extended amount of times, you know what that looked like? I mean, it's like, like you're like some world leader or something was about to move or do something. That's how it kind of looked like, but sure as heck didn't feel like that. I mean, it was, at first it might have been, but it was just, complete dicking with you and intimidation. That's what it amounted to. But so that's just a few more of the things that were done to me. And that was what I'll call, I guess, part 2 of the technologies and procedures used against me and my family. And I'll cover the courts here in the next part here. Take care.